First of all, I'd like to start by thanking our organizers for inviting me. But I need to also apologize in advance because I was in a hurry to prepare the slides. So I don't have time to rehearse. If I time out, please just let me know. Today, I shall be speaking of an interesting text and the use of qi in this text. My current research interests are directed towards pre-modern and early modern natural knowledge across the Eurasian continent, especially natural history knowledge. So it is my intention to investigate the use of qi in Chinese natural history text. My research concerns may be very close to Meng's research on Yueling, but I would like to choose another earlier text, one composed in the 11th century. So why chronology matters here? Because this text had appeared before the New Confucianism found its major form. In the current historiography of New Confucianism, too much ink has been spilled on Zhu Xi and his school. As a fundamental category, qi in Zhu Xi's philosophy, it's not me. Qi is often discussed in the fabric of Neo Confucianism. As a contrast, scholars before Zhu Xi often recede into the background as compared to later philosophers of great stature. Dian is one of these little studied figures, and his work Piya also received little attention from historians of philosophy and science. Perhaps his name is even somewhat unfamiliar to some of my Chinese colleagues. To facilitate understanding, let us just replace the proper names in my title with some general terms. The use of qi in natural history text composed by a marginal Confucian scholar in the age when New Confucianism was just emerging. Let's check out what is happening with qi at this particular time. Before we proceed, I would like to give an overview of the meanings of qi in my own summary. For me, the concept of qi has several aspects. The first one is phenological qi, in the sense that it is associated with the change of seasons and weathers. And this meaning is often attributed to an earlier stage of its development. The term phenological is my wording. I'm not sure if Meng will have objection to it, but actually I'm aware of the anachronism when using it. But before I can find an appropriate word for it, I choose to take it as an ersatz. And we still have a metaphysical qi, which could be considered an analog to a materia or hule. In New Confucianism, it also appears in the context of cosmogony. This metaphysical qi constitutes the main subject of this workshop. And since Nicola and Shixiang have made its significance clear, I will not dwell on it. Then we have a medical qi. In my understanding, it is an analog to a pneuma. It is a form of circulating air necessary for the functioning of organs or the whole organism. At last, the ethical qi should also be mentioned. It is about how one behaves properly. It seems to me that this ethical qi might be comparable to ethos, perhaps in a limited sense. Of course, this delineation is probably incomplete, and the full meanings of qi are, of course, interrelated. Here, I just want to figure out, in a Chinese natural history text in 11th century, in what sense qi can be used as explanans, and what is the explanandum? Before we move to the text of Piya itself, I need to explain the genre of this text first. The word ya here indicates its genre. It is conceived as an imitation or supplement to Erya. Erya is the first surviving Chinese dictionary, dated most probably in the 2nd century of our common era. Erya is considered the authoritative lexicographic guide to Chinese classic texts, and it is officially listed in the 13 classics by Song Dynasty Confucians, that is in the ranks of the works by Confucius and Mencius. In short, it has a very high status. Oreo has 19 books, and the last 7 ones are explaining the name of animals and plants. But the language of Oreo is very elegant and concise, so if we want to understand it accurately, commentaries are needed. This was also the case for the ancient Chinese scholars. Another major historical event that took place during the Song dynasty was Wang Anshi's reforms. These reforms were initiated by politician Wang Anshi. But Wang Anshi is more than a politician. He's also a Confucian scholar with ambitions. What he wishes to promote included a new philosophy. He, along with his close collaborators, wrote several commentaries on several Confucian classics, all entitled New Exegesis. And these commentaries were declared the official textbooks for the national examinations. Wang's philosophy can be considered as a forerunner of New Confucianism. The most part of Wang Anshi's commentary has been lost, but from the surviving fragments, we know that Wang Anshi considered the prime qi as the ultimate substance from which everything in this world found its origins. Lu Dian was a pupil of Wang Anshi. He was born in 1042 and died in 1102. He was awarded the highest degree in 1070 when Wang Anshi's reform were just beginning. So in his scholarship, he was heavily influenced by Wang Anshi. He even imitated Wang Anshi by writing a new exegesis of Oreo, which is of course a commentary on Oreo. In addition to this, he was said to have been known for his erudition. He obviously possesses a considerable knowledge of nature objects. This is reflected in his work Piya. The Chinese character Pi means supplement, so it is a book meant to supplement Oreo. What is unique here is that the whole work is devoted to animals and plants, no other sense of words. Moreover, the texts were there are no longer entries and simple paraphrases, but more like an encyclopedia. And it is for this reason that I regard it as a work of natural history. What I would like to draw your attention is one chapter from the book 8 of Piya. The chapter is about Huangniao, or yellow bird, if we translate it literally. In English, that is the Oreo. I don't know if there are any bird watchers among us, but I will say that if you see it in the wild, you will certainly appreciate its beauty. The Oreo has many synonyms in ancient China, and the Oreo I recorded several ones. Though you may not be able to memorize all these names, let us keep in mind that all words on this slide denote the Oreo, and please just note Huangniao and Chenggeng here. These entries are too short and no further information is given. Lu Dian then in his new exegesis of Oreo wrote more about the Oreo under the entry of Chenggeng. He said Chenggeng is Li Huang. He being black and yellow at the same time is beautiful. In the classical poetry, which is a collection of poems compiled by Confucius, it is written that some are black and some are yellow. But the original verses actually addresses the color of the horse's coat. So to me, it is a kind of digression. However, in Piya, Lu Dian wrote a very long paragraph on it. Here is the first section of it. He simply enumerated some synonyms, and then it often comes when the mulberries are ripe and it stays on the mulberry tree. Hence, we have the proverb. Huang Li Liu witnesses my wheat turning yellow and also my mulberries ripening. It is therefore a bird that follows the order of seasons and terms. In classical poems, wherever Huangniao is mentioned, an implied comparison is made, and wherever Chenggeng is mentioned, a narrative is given. So when we read the Changgen is flying about and its wings are shining, this is a narrative of a man and a woman courting at the right time. Because Changgen sends in mid-spring and its feathers become shiny only in summer, therefore its chirps a mark of the right time for marriage, and its shiny feathers don't. So we have some other lines in the classic poetry again. There is the little Huang Niao resting on a bend of the mount, and so on. And some other yes, the phrase here and much varied means people of lowly status should not be forgotten, and some other phrases indicate the opposite fact. And here he continues. Another name for Huang Niao is Li Huang, which indicate that its colors are black and yellow. When it suns, some worms will appear, and again we have some quotes from the classics of poetry. And he said, we have already known the rationale for these lines. Han Yu one side, bird song indicate the spring, insects the autumn. The former clause refers to Huang Niao, who excels in chirping. And then here is a key. Yin and Yang take their own course, thus Shi or season arrives and Qi operates, which would not be otherwise. For this reason, the former emperors or the sage rulers used the chirps of Changgen to arrange the order of seasonal terms. Let us take a closer look of the structure of this text. After listing some synonyms, Lu Dian almost literally quoted a few sentences from the classic commentary on Erya, namely that of Xingbing. But Lu Dian omitted some more synonyms in Chinese dialects, which is enumerated by Xingbing. It looked like that he was impatient about it. Then he turned to the verses from classic poetry, which are supposed to be known by all Confucians at that time. By doing so, he emphasized that this bird follows the order of seasons and terms. And after discussing these verses, he then insert a remark about its colors, as he did in his new exegesis of Erya. Although Lu Dian thought the bird was very beautiful, he didn't dwell on the morphological description. He immediately spoke again of the phenological feature of the Oreo, and then again an interpretation of some other verses. At the end of this section, Lu Dian wrote about the movement of Yin and Yang, as well as their results, that is the order of Shi and Qi, which may explain the fact that the sage rulers in ancient times used Oreo as an indicator of seasons. So what is the relationship between Shi and Qi? I think it would be helpful to deal first of all with a philological issue. In the 8th books of Erya, we find a somewhat puzzling entry under the title for Shi. And it is said spring is Qingyang and so on. And the harmony of the 4 Qi is called Yuzhu. I know that the first 4 clauses here amount to no translation at all. We can make it clear by checking the commentary by Guo Pu. It turns out that all these phrases are about a specific status of qi. Say, Qingyang denotes qi that is pure and warm, and so forth. However, more than 400 years later, after Lu Dian's death, this text from Erya was altered by the official university of the Ming Dynasty, Guozijian, or the Imperial College. In the Imperial College edition of Erya, we find instead the harmony of 4 Shi is called Yuzhu. So for a student in the Ming Dynasty, the relationship between qi and shi or time needs to have been obscured. But Lu Dian, living before the Ming Dynasty, accepted the reading of 4 qi instead of 4 shi. This is actually the reading from the inscriptions of the classics made in the Tang Dynasty. This variance was noted by Sunjutsu, an editor of Lu Dian's work in the Qing Dynasty, who affirmed that Lu Dian's reading is better. On the whole, Lu Dian, as an erudite commentator in the Northern Song Dynasty, naturally understood well the relationship between 4 seasons, or shi, and the significance of underlying qi. This is not the end of our story. After writing so much, Lu Dian realized that he should tell the reader exactly what kind of qi makes up the 4 seasons. Thus, he listed the 24 qi and the 72 hou in the chronological order of a year. And as this is an extremely long text, I shall certainly not present it in its entirety here. But I thought it would be possible to show the first few qi and hou in the season of spring. Please simply note that in the line I mark it in red, there is the Oreo as an indicator of the term. Here we go. Just some phenological phenomenon. At last, Lu Dian concluded, these are the 6 qi and their 18 hou. He then continued to enumerate other qi like this. These are nothing new. The 24 qi listed by Lu Dian is the same as what today we call 24 solar terms, or 24节气. However, we should be mindful of the rhetoric here and where this text appeared. The earliest text containing 24 solar terms might be Xia Xiaozheng, a pre-Qing work that is said to be a phonological calendar of the Xia dynasty, but no qi is mentioned in that text. Confusions in the Han dynasty include the description of 24 solar terms into the Book of Rites, one of the most important Confucian classics. The word qi appears in that text scatteredly, but not as an explanans of behaviors of animals and plants, at least not explicitly. Lu Dian not only named these 24 terms as qi, attempt to formulate a general principle of shi and qi, but also found it necessary to attach this to an article on Oreos. So I'd like to conclude myself with these observations. First, even for an 11th century Confucian scholar, the phonological qi still played an active role. We should note the temporal connotation of qi, which may serve as one of the starting points for comparison of concepts of Chinese and Western natural philosophy, for we can perhaps hardly find its counterpart in European natural philosophy. And secondly, the explanandum here is the phonological phenomenon, but in the mirror of Confucian classical texts. Although qi is a general principle, perhaps those animals and plants listed in the 24 qi may be the main and appropriate objects of explanation. And thirdly, we can discern a hierarchical structure of concepts. First is shi, and then qi, and then hou, which can be translated as pentat. And finally, I would like to make a plea. Let us pay attention to natural history texts to examine the concepts put in use, and to check their relationship with their use in natural philosophy texts. I believe such an investigation is rewarding. That's all. Thank you so much for listening.